turn red like you see mine here, and then identify yourself with your name and address, and then present your testimony to the board. It should be noted if anyone's presenting false or misleading testimony that affects this board's decision, any approval can be revoked at a later date by means of a show cause hearing. The board will go through all cases set on this agenda. Again, like I said, they'll vote and discuss on the case in front of you. The board is vested with the power to act on these cases as outlined in section 1740-180 of the Metro Code of Law and 137207 of the State Code. You must have 4 affirmative votes to grant your application today. I currently have 5 members present. Again, if your case is heard today and it has only 4 members heard, or if all 5 hear your case, you must have 4 of those members voting in your favor for your case to be granted. What will happen today in the event that you do not get 4 affirmative votes in new cases that we hear, and I emphasize new because we do have some tied up cases from last time. The new cases, if they become tied, they will be heard. The public hearing will be closed, but the members will have an opportunity that aren't present will have an opportunity to review today's record, which will be the YouTube video, and then participate at our meeting on July 17th, which will be out at the Metropolitan School Board on Bransford Avenue, at which time they're allowed to vote at that hearing. So for the cases that are on today that are currently tied, failure to receive your 4th affirmative vote today is deemed a denial of your case by operation of law. All right, let's see. We recently discussed, we had some cases that were postponed. Those have been announced. And the board does have a consent agenda. I do have an item on the consent agenda. Consent agenda is a case that the chair or vice chair reviews before today's hearing, and if in their opinion you've met the criteria for a variance or special exception, and that testimony would not alter the material facts, they recommend a case to the remaining members of the board. I'll call out the case that's recommended for consent, and if you are here in opposition to this case that I call, raise your hand, please, and then we'll hear it in its regular order. The item recommended for the consent agenda today is on page 3. It is case 2025-58. Emily Rawls, Legacy Home Loans, LLC, the owner of the property at 2206 21st Avenue, requesting a variance in the street setback standards for a ground sign on the premises. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 58 on 21st Avenue? Madam Chairman, I see none. That case has been approved. We'll need a motion in a second, from the members.
Do we have a motion on consent?
Move to accept the consent agenda.
Any seconds?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. So we have 5 for it's approved.
Okay. If you're here for case 58, your case has been approved on a vote of 5 and 0. Do follow up with the Codes Department beginning Monday to obtain the permit for which you've applied. And I want to extend an invitation for you to stay with us for the rest of today, if you'd like to. If not, you're free to go. All right. Members, looking at today's agenda, I've got one item currently a little bit out of order. It's a tied up on votes case, and we list out our agendas numerically by case number. The Hodges has actually filed their appeal previously, and we had postponed their case until today. So that's why it's a little bit out of sequence. So we'll first discuss case 2025-42, Sway Estates, the appellant owner of the property at 1295 Sonny May Drive. They were requesting a variance in street setback requirements in the RS 7.5 district. This case is tied on votes. It was a motion to approve by Mr. Cole and seconded by Mr. Bradford. Those voting in favor of the case were Mr. Bradford, Mr. Cole, Mr. Pepper. Those against, Ms. Karpanek. And we had 3 members who were not present. And I'll start, I guess, from left to right. And we'll start with you, Mr. Ransom. Have you reviewed the tape in today's proceedings? And if so, do you wish to participate?
Yes and yes.
How do you vote, sir?
right now, I need more information, where I would prefer to have more information. I watched the whole hearing. I'm unfortunately inclined to vote no.
Okay.
So just based on the information, I'll say this, based on the information the applicant gave, wasn't enough for me to determine how much it would, injure the associated neighbor. I wasn't clear on that.
Okay.
So that's all I'll say on that.
All right. We'll let the record reflect that you're abstaining from vote in this case. I'll then move to Ms. Johnson. Ms. Johnson, have you? Oh.
He voted.
I voted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I voted no.
No, my apologies. Thank you.
That's okay. I wish I asked, yeah. I wish there was an ability to kind of potentially open back up because I had some additional questions, but.
Okay.
Would we be able to just see how the other members will vote and then see if we can open it up?
You can, if you chose to reopen public hearing, you may do so.
Okay, but we should hear from the other members first.
Right, so you'd have to have a vote, have like a motion to reopen it, and a
Okay.
second, and vote to reopen it, if you wish to do that.
I make a motion that we reopen the public hearing, and then you can hear, or do you want us to say how we're gonna vote first? I'm sorry.
Well, I think if you need more information before you feel you can vote, I think you should reopen the public hearing, get that information first, and then vote.
I was doing it for the benefit of member Ransom,
Yes, thank you.
and so that's the only reason why I make the motion.
Well,
I'll take back my vote.
Do we need to see if Ms. Johnson is going to vote? Because if Ms. Johnson votes aye, then we're done. So
That's true.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of going to
just
see
thinking
where.
pragmatically here.
It's a pragmatic.
So I did watch a YouTube video, but I declined to participate because I still have unanswered question.
And Ms. Davis, do you have the same? Do you have
I was
questions?
inclined to vote no with you, so, but
But
that's why I said, so that's why I was just
Okay,
like, let's
yeah.
go ahead and reopen it. That way it might change my vote.
Yeah,
So
because
you
we'll have
make a motion. You
we'll
made
have a
motion
3,
to
3, and 1.
reopen.
So
I'll make a second to reopen and we'll vote. All in favor of reopening the public hearing? 3, against reopening?
A question, reopening public hearing, would that be July 17th? Or right now, I don't see,
I think we'd have to reopen it and renotice it because my understanding is that when we vote, that this is not, there's not testimony to be taken, so there needs to be some sort of notice of a public hearing, but.
Generally, your practice hasn't been not to do public
Yeah.
hearings, but
Correct.
the board could choose to do it if you want to, I guess, are people not here today?
On this particular one, it's basically you can either build something or not, or maybe you could, as Ms. Carbonek said, you could build something, but it could be skinny and tall. This one seems to be an oddball a little bit, and I think if I could take back my previous vote, if we open back the public hearing, I think I prefer that, but.
Looks like we have an applicant here. And we have someone who's an opposition or applicant, opposition. Yeah. So I think we can, but were you going to vote to reopen it, Ms. Johnson?
Ms. Johnson.
I wasn't sure what.
yes, I wanted to be fair. I wanted to have applicant and I wanted to have opposition to be
Yeah, it looks like they're both
present
here.
to be,
Yeah.
in order for us to open a public hearing. And if both are present, yes, I vote yea to open the public hearing.
Okay, and then I think we need to give each side, I'm going to say 3 minutes each side. Okay, everyone agrees to that. So it looks like let's vote again. So looked like motion to reopen with 3 minutes each side. And, okay.
Oh, yeah.
We got it for it, okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't see your vote, but,
But no.
okay. Okay.
Administratively, from my previous vote, do I need to take, what's the procedure?
No,
Let's open back up and
You can just say you're going to rescind your vote, and you
rescind my vote. All right, thanks.
okay. All right. With that, we'll rehold the public hearing on this case. So let me pull up the PowerPoint for you, at least refresh you to this point. Okay, that's our subject property is the parcel which you see here in green up on the screen. Right there. Nature of the request is a street setback variance. The required setback based on the contextual average, which would be the average of the four homes to the right-hand side of the slide, is 33 feet. The applicant's requesting 21 feet. And a view into the subject property parcel to the immediate right-hand side. So that catches everyone up. If the applicant for Sway Estates would come forward. And members, since you had questions, obviously in your rules, your questions and answers are not timed. So if you want this gentleman to put testimony in first or answer your questions first and add to it.
I think we should answer the question.
Okay.
Joey, do you mind putting the?
Is that the one you'd like, sir? I can zoom in on that a little bit.
I'll dive right in. Do you need does he,
Yes, my name is Brandon Scott. I'm representing Sway Estates. And my address is 1807 Northside Drive, Murfreesboro.
so a couple questions I have. I'm trying to determine, obviously I know the average setback, but I'm trying to determine how far this house sits in front of the adjacent house. It looks like 18 feet and change.
No, it's not that much. I mean, it might be about, we're basically moving it up about 8 to 10 feet. It looks bigger on there, but the whole reason of moving it up is because there is a creek that runs in the middle of the land. So that's the whole reason of moving it forward some. So we can, just kind of add more support to that foundation and all that.
I totally understand.
Okay.
I understand the hardship. I'm trying to understand what this potential structure could look like.
Yeah, I have the blueprint here if you'd like to look at it.
That'd be great.
It's going to be a
Mind passing
basic
that around.
house. I remember the last meeting, somebody stated that it could be this is to help eliminate, so it's not a taller skin, basically, because that's kind of not really what we're wanting to do there.
Thanks. Is it okay if I hold on to this for now?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to hang on to it anyway since it was given in.
It's on the record now. So the proposed first floor elevation is 458, is what you're saying? Is that what? Is that what
Yes,
this is
and
showing?
that's coming from the FEMA. So regardless of if we leave it at its current position or move it forward, according to FEMA, it has to be elevated up because it's in a flood zone.
Right, you need to be, I think it's 18 inches.
Right.
Above the 100-year flood. And your current elevation is of grade is what, 453? I'm trying to determine the height and how much.
Yeah,
this is
the
leaning
height is
over.
basically going to be about, because the engineer, they're going to specify that the height is going to be probably about 4 feet above ground up. So that's about 4 to, 6 courses off the ground, basically.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at, right?
I have a question for him, for Ransom, as he's looking at this. I think my concern was, obvious there's a hardship, but, I think, member Karkanek and I, we normally vote the same on these. I like the integrity of blocks. I like the integrity of houses. I don't like houses in front of other houses. I think it ruins block faces. So I understand the hardship, but if you have a hardship, I always like to narrowly tailor it. So I guess my question is, and I'm going to defer to y'all, is this, I understand you might need some variance, obvious, but is this the best variance? Is this narrowly tailored based off of these circumstances? Is there another way that you give them a variance that maybe doesn't put it 10 feet in front of this other house, but maybe only 5 feet, so then it's not as obvious? I don't know, because this isn't my area of expertise, but I do like to narrowly tailor these types of exceptions because you're going to mess with a block face that's already clearly established. So that's what my question is.
Yeah, I think that's, no, I mean, I think that's part of what I'm held up on, right? I mean, he, in his previous testimony, talked about how not trying to be a jerk here, but he mentioned multiple times that your neighbor should have done due diligence. Well,
Correct.
you're buying a lot that's got a lot of encumbrance on it.
Correct.
We could say the same on your side, right? So this is not, you are restricted with the floodway zone, and I understand I'm a builder, so I built in floodways in Nashville, so I know the program. But your first floor elevation, this doesn't show it here, but your first floor is probably 6 feet higher than your the neighboring house. And then on top of that, you're 2.5 times in height. And then if this is scaled correctly, that's 18 feet up. So, you're 18 feet further up, and then you're probably going to be 25 feet higher. It will loom over the adjacent house, which has the ability to, they can certainly go higher in height if they chose to, and a number of other things. So,
But my question to that is, Mr. Ransom, is regardless whether we move the house forward or back, the same thing is going to, those houses, it's a very, it's an older neighborhood, there were no restrictions on, CCNRs or any of that. So regardless, we're able to build it, how we would like to build it. The goal, again, is to get us off the creek. That's the main reason. We can get into the texture of the house, but the goal is just to get off the creek zone.
I understand all that.
Right.
I understand all that, but this is a permanent forever structure, right? So, we can't get into, prescribing what should be put. It's pretty binary, right?
Right.
But
May I jump in and ask some question to the zoning administrator? Joey, in this case, I see the house, like a back side of the corner is very outside of the floodway. What is our metro regulation, a buffer or, ability to build close to or away from floodway? What kind of requirement is the applicant, if we do not grant this variance, can applicants still build the house in an average setback? Of course, it will have to be higher, but I see the floodway in this picture, like a left side of the corner. Would the applicant be able to build the house pushing back within the floodway? Or our metro regulation prohibit to do that?
No, ma'am, you're not permitted to build in the floodway. Floodplain is permitted to be in. You have to be a foot above flood elevation to be in the flood plain. But if what I'm seeing on this map, that is the floodway,
floodway is like.
and they do not permit you to be in that.
So if that's the case, don't you have to have like a certain buffer away from the floodway as well? Seems like the proposed house is not really meeting the metro regulation.
Well, that's something that the stormwater office deals with on the permitting side. They will allow him to be in the buffer, but he has to work with them on how he's mitigating it, or, they allow different types of things to occur in the floodway to allow water to flow through the foundation through.
Vents and other stuff that relieves hydraulic pressure in the foundation, so water can move through. But a floodway is like high velocity waters, where the other areas kind of fills up with water and then goes back down. So the foundation of this would have open vents or vents that allow water to kind of pass through.
So my struggle is, of course, there's a floodway. Of course, a house has to come forward. It's a hardship because of the physical puzzle. But in order, if we were to allow the house, it's not only really, halfway through sticking out from the street, but would that really safe to the other house? Because foundation will be here, the water movement will change because of the current when, unlike flood happens. So if I think about the, effect to the existing neighboring house, it seems like, I understand hardship, but moving is it a safe way?
I will comment to that only from my experience as a builder here in Nashville. When you build in these areas, you're not allowed to basically, you can't have any more water leave your lot that otherwise would have come on it. And then they also have venting and other stuff. So essentially, when the house is built, it should not affect the volume or flow of the water in one way or the other. You can actually create more volume on your lot for more water to be on your lot, but not the other way around. Again, we're BZA, we're not stormwater, so just speaking from my own experience. So I'm not personally worried about from a water standpoint. I'm really just from a block face and height, that type of a scenario. This is not like the applicant is asking for 3 or 5 additional feet.
There's not a height variance. I mean, the height, it's not height where it's situated. So I think.
And I don't think that was Mr. Ransom's point. I took it to mean that he was saying like. if
We're
it's
granting a
35
variance to move
feet
it.
In front of this house, he would probably go with it, but the variance is 12, so we'll round down. It's 10 feet in front of the other house, so I think that's the issue. That's
It
my
is.
issue, at least.
It is, if we're gonna go off exact numbers, it's 21 instead of 33, so it's 12 feet on the block face. This house happens to sit further back, so it's actually roughly 18, if I'm scaling this little drawing. It's roughly 18 feet in front of the other one. I understand about the height, but when you're pulling a house 12 feet from the line or 18 feet
Right.
from the neighbor, and it's gonna be super tall. And
Yeah.
and it's just out of context, but I don't know what else could be done with the lot. I mean,
Yeah, I think we're venturing towards this thing being like unbuildable because of the way that the floodway bends at the back of that property line. I mean, that's the thing, is that floodway doesn't run straight. It takes a sharp curve at the property line towards the back of this house. So we're looking at an even shallower buildable space than would be for the neighboring lot. So.
right, but this isn't the most, this isn't the most linear plan that this is a pretty sizable house plan from what I've seen. So it's not, this to me, the way I read this is not taking into the associated neighbor and other things, that like this is designed as if it was a regular block face.
What do you mean?
It's a deep house, it's a tall house. It's not taking into account the uniqueness of the lot and the fact the size of the variance that's being asked. Maybe it should be binary, but
Yeah,
it's not like they're asking 3 feet.
I think really that it's taken the uniqueness of the lot and the fact that unless you push this forward, you're creating a flood risk here.
Right.
And you're building a house that would not be legal because you're building something that's in the floodway.
Because I heard member Kaepernick last time, because I was here the last time. Like, some of this is design choices, like.
We don't regulate design
I know
choice
that,
though.
but my point is just that, like, if you're gonna come and ask for a 12-foot variance, it's gonna mess up the block space for existing houses. Like, your variance should be narrowly tailored. Like, I think it's, like, we get this a lot, and I don't like when people do this. Oh, I have a variance, so maybe I only need like a 5-foot variance, but I'm gonna ask for a 30-foot variance because I wanna get everything I want. And that's not the point of this board. Like, yes, he's supposed to get a variance if there's a hardship, but we're also supposed to think about the context of potential hardship to the neighborhood. And I'm balancing that. So yes, do I think that there's a hardship? Yes. I don't know if it's worth a 12-foot variance, is my point. That's like, yes, maybe there's another variance request I would give, but I can't give 12 feet. I think that's where I'm at.
I think the issue is that he could by right build a house this size on this lot, but for the existence of the floodway. So I think the question is, like, to me, he's got a property right to build a house of this square footage. He's got a property right to build a house of this height. The thing that is preventing that from happening is an environmental condition that is something that warrants a finding. And so essentially what we're saying is, we're going to truncate what you could do by right, by limiting this variance and by basically forcing this owner to build something that's different than what the law would allow him to do. So, I mean, I think we're stepping into a dangerous place in terms of putting conditions that could approach, some sort of exaction on this, just based upon the sort of nature of the hardship. So I just think we should be really careful about that because, I don't know what the structure would look like if you tried to make it fit within a smaller setback. But I think that the idea is this would be a legal structure that could be placed further back, but for the existence of this environmental condition.
Yeah, but I would like to say you don't have a by right to a variance. That's the point of this board. So like, it's not a by right, in my mind, this isn't a by right thing. Like I used to say, thank God I get to say it again today. Certain horses aren't made for certain horses. Maybe this house isn't meant for this lot, and that's why he's asking for a variance. And all I'm saying is, hey, maybe the variance needs to be a little different in light of the fact that everybody else's house is on the line, and you're trying to bring it up. Floodplain or not, and I'm done. Go ahead, Member Ransom.
No, that's all right, Mr. Robert, I totally get it, and if, it does enter a little bit of a gray area, right? Because where's the prescription and what strings do you pull? But it's not like, to my knowledge, the applicant was the original owner, and then all this encumberment was placed on him. This was, like, let's say, for example, the floodway was 10 feet further up, we'd be asking for a 11-foot variance. I think the onus is on the person who acquired the property and then coming with a set of plans that works within this encumberment. To me, I think what is being asked, both, I know to me, I look at height when you come forward beyond. I know that you can go to 3 stories, but I look at the sum of it all, and unfortunately, due to the flood zone, they do have to pull up the first floor elevation, and this house to me does not seem, I feel like this was just picked out and put on here, and it wasn't designed at all specifically for this variance.
It's an architect that designed it specifically for that. So we did our homework on it. We're only here, I feel like we're talking about aesthetics, but whether I'm here or not.
I'm talking about size.
I don't know what you're saying, but it says overall, we are talking 2, 3 story, it doesn't matter. We can build whatever size house. The whole point we're here is only for the creek, and we're talking about design, the size, which ultimately, even if I try to make it fit the way it is, because I would have to get my architect to redesign it, it's still going to be 2, 3 stories. It's still going to be different from other houses. There are no restrictions on how I can build it. I hear what you guys are saying, but I'm not here for the aesthetics. I'm only here and my only reason to move it forward is for safety. That's pretty much it.
I do appreciate that, the comment, but however, I think, Member Davis said a really great point. I think this parcel definitely, because of the creek, meets hardship, but variance, the variance we're being asked is 12 feet. I feel comfortable with 6 feet variance. 6 feet is like, sticking out porch. About 12 feet is more like one room, front of other houses. So I think for us yes, we can grant the variance, but yes, variance must be 6 feet. So that would be reasonable. If that's the case, I can approve it, but not as submitted.
I think, even doesn't look like it goes the property line. I just think there's other ways to, I don't know.
And keep in mind the structure on the neighboring structure, the White House that's right there, that house is built right up to the property line.
I noticed
So,
that.
I'm understanding injuring the neighboring property matters, but obviously the applicant didn't cause the neighboring house to basically be well into a side setback, so.
Right.
No, go, Madam Chair.
I was just gonna ask if anyone has further questions for the applicant. I feel like we're almost getting into a deliberation. So
Yeah,
I thought maybe-
last question, I think you said it in your last time you were up here. What was the total sum? It was like 2,100 square feet or something?
Square footage, yeah, I think it's right at 2,000, 2,100, somewhere around there. It should be on the blueprint up there.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Any more questions? Okay, so that person in opposition will come forward, and then you'll have 2 minutes and 19 seconds to further come up and say whatever else you need to. Yeah. So we'll let her come up, and if you wouldn't mind taking a seat, and we'll call you right back up. And if you could state, I know you stated your name last time, but if you can do it again.
Katie Williams, 1252 Sunny Drive. I'm not the owner of the house. I live across the street from her.
And I guess this is open for asking you questions. Does anyone have questions for the opponent? Okay, we didn't reset the clock, but, should we reset the clock? Okay. And,
We don't have, I mean, I don't have a question, but, she can state if she has some comment, just being fair with that, right? So if she want to have make some statement.
I was gonna see if she had any comments on what the appellant talked about during his discussion.
Okay, I think if she were here, she would want just to further emphasize that it's gonna kind of ruin her view. She hasn't been in the home for very long, and I'm not sure what to say.
Okay, so in response to the discussion about the height versus how close it is to the street, her concern is more with how it affects her property in terms of how it's laid out on the site, how close it is to the,
Right.
to her, how far it is away from her structure.
Yeah, and it's on a hill, so it's gonna be, her house is set down, and then that property goes steeply up a hill. I don't know if you can tell on there, but, so it's just gonna be towering over her whole.
And the only thing we can deliberate on today is really the position of the new structure,
Right.
the neighbor's structure on the property, not the height.
Yeah, she understands that too.
Okay. Okay, any questions?
I have one. Could I get your name and address, please, miss? For the
Yes, Katie Williams, 1252 Sonny Mead Drive,
All right, thank you, Ms.
Nashville.
Williams.
Okay, then we'll call back up the appellant. And you can take a seat. Thank you. You can, yes.
Okay. Not much to say on that, but just the only thing to clarify, if you see the original picture that he had on, I mean, our houses are the same height basically, so it's a downward hill that goes down into it. That's the only thing to clarify from her statement.
Any further questions? Then we'll close the public hearing and deliberate.
Okay.
So at this point, we're waiting for votes from Board Member Ransom and Johnson, correct?
So, all three here.
And Ms. Davis.
Oh, so three of you,
Right.
okay.
So just so that we can move on to the next one, I just want the record to be abundantly clear. Okay, sorry. No, it's fine. So, this board, I think it's important to note, but we do not deal with aesthetics. I don't have a dog in the fight about aesthetics. We approve a lot of things that I don't necessarily think are pretty, but nobody cares what my opinion is. But here, this is not, like, my vote is not based off of an opinion. It's just like, I think the point of the Metro zoning code is to maintain the integrity of block faces, maintain the integrity of existing neighborhoods, and we allow variances in circumstances where it's warranted. And in this case, I think the variance is warranted. I don't think the request is narrowly tailored and in context to the neighborhood. So I understand that this house will likely have to come up some. I think the request is too large based off of the context. So if it was a different request, I would likely be more in favor of it. But as this request is presented, I think I can't support it. That was it.
So your vote is no. I forgot we
vote is
can't
no,
take
yeah.
new votes. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I'm the same way. If the variance is halfway, I would support it, but not the way it presented. For that reason, I have to vote no.
Yeah, I mean, I want to make this work, but I think you said it best when it's not been nearly tailored to the variance. This lot definitely needs to get a variance, and I think we'd be willing to grant it if something was more tailored to, you know, the block face. I don't know what that is. I mean, 2,100 square feet is not a ton of, a ton of square footage. We might end up with a house that's potentially narrower, but taller. So 6 one way, half dozen the other. So at this time, the way it is presented, I would unfortunately have to vote no.
Okay.
So that motion fails, so can we make a new motion?
Actually, no, because that was a tie motion.
I thought it was the motion was to approve.
To approve.
And it lost, so is there a motion then to make a motion to approve at a different,
hang
at
on.
a different number?
Yeah, because I have 4 no votes.
Okay,
Yes.
can I then,
Hang
I
on,
would-
give me 1 second. if you
Okay.
don't mind.
trust me here, guys. I have an idea. I thought I remembered Robert's rules the right way. It's been a minute since student government, though. Yeah, no, I know. It's tabbed, very well tabbed.
We're just working through a procedural quirk.
Okay.
Give us 1 second.
I think we had one of these earlier where a motion failed,
If-
and then there was a new motion that was made.
I think we are both in agreement. If this were the first time you hearing this, there could be a subsequent motion, but this was already heard prior. So the 2 members who voted in the affirmative hadn't heard any of this testimony.
Okay. Well, I mean, since the public hearing reopened, is there a way to do it as if there's a new motion that gets approved by 4 votes that are 4 different votes today, is that?
No,
Good.
because the motion on the table is a motion to grant.
Well, and I'm saying, but that motion was defeated, so there would be a subsequent motion. If there's a new motion, then would it not be then that you would have 4 new votes potentially to?
In a normal public hearing, the answer would be yes. The issue here, though, in your rules and in the zoning code, this hearing has already occurred once. So
then was the new hearing even lawful? I mean, that's the.
no, well, this is.
No, it's permitted.
Okay.
It's permitted, but I think you inherently create these issues by doing so.
I mean, the laws don't explicitly address this situation.
Okay.
So I think it's a situation where the board itself
We can,
construe its rules and decide what it wants to do in this situation.
well, I
It
think we
doesn't
can,
come up very often.
I think we can make a motion, and if somebody wants to sue us, then they can sue us. I'll make a motion.
Don't make that motion.
Yeah, no, not to sue us. I'll make a motion to grant a variance to the applicant, to approve the request for a variance with the condition that the variance is 6 feet instead of 12 feet.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second on the motion?
Well, can I ask a question since it?
Sure.
I think we would have to second the motion to have a,
Yeah,
to be a
second, then someone, if there's appetite for a second, if anyone wants to second it, they can, or it just dies if there's no second. But after it's seconded, you can still discuss before voting. So it just depends what people want to do.
I mean, to me, that seems like the easiest way to just solve this issue. I'm not,
we need this.
Yes, is there-
I haven't seconded, yeah, I have not.
I'm sorry.
So you're not
Yeah, I know, that's
seconding. Is
why
anyone
you said it
seconding?
out.
Okay, we got a second. We have a
All right.
motion and a second, now discussion.
I mean, I generally don't have a problem with that. I just don't, it's not always easy to fit stuff in, and maybe he would want 6 feet and change, and maybe side setback, or I don't know. That seems like it might be, maybe I'm overcomplicating it. Because he's asking for 12 feet now and 6 feet.
Well, he can also petition for rehearing if he's unsatisfied with the outcome and potentially bring more information before the board to support
Yeah, you're right.
requesting,
Thanks for reminding me. Okay,
one way or the other.
okay, you have a second? Okay.
Okay, there was a motion, a second.
Can I halt y'all? Let's don't,
Hold on just one moment, Joe, you're going to discuss one thing.
yeah, Sharon, let's take a recess, because let's just take a recess for about 5 minutes. Let Ann and I discuss our rules versus the zoning code, because there's very specific language we've got to get right.
Okay.
Board will stand in recess for 5 minutes. Thank y'all. A new motion based off the first one failing, because we're within 30 days. So with that, the motion currently on the table is a motion to approve for a 6-foot variance. We have a motion, no second yet, so I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Ms.
Do we
Johnson,
second?
second.
Okay, I'll write that down. Okay.
Okay, so motion is second. Did we have any further discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor, say aye, raise your hand. We have 3 in favor and all against.
Okay, here's, this case, this is a new motion. It'll stay on our agenda. It'll be heard July 17th at the school board. What'll happen is the 2 members who are not present today can watch today and participate. So,
Can the applicant withdraw his application because there hasn't been a final vote one way or the other on this yet and refile it?
he can withdraw one time without prejudice and refile, should he
Okay.
want to. Yeah, we can talk, once I get through the announcement of the first case, we can talk through the ways of it. Okay. With that, take one out of order. Case 48, we need to deal with it before we start with 47, Mr. Hodges' appeal. This case is also tied on vote, so let me just refresh. Ms. Karen Robbins is the appellant and owner of the property, 4600 Nevada Avenue. Ms. Robbins was requesting a variance from the height requirements for a closed fence or an opaque fence within the street setback in RS 7.5. The appellant sought approval for a fence that was previously constructed. This motion is tied on votes. The motion was to approve by Mr. Bradford, seconded by Mr. Pepper. Those voting in favor of the granting the variance for Mr. Bradford, Ms. Davis, Mr. Pepper. Those opposed, Mr. Cole, Ms. Carpenter. So that leaves Ms. Johnson and Mr. Ransom. Mr. Ransom, I'll poll you since you're closest to me. Have you reviewed the record in this case?
Yes.
And do you wish to participate? And if you ask for more questions, I'm going to strangle you. So I'm just kidding, I'm joking. Should I go to Ms. Johnson? All right, Ms. Johnson, have you watched today's case?
Yes,
Or
I did.
Do you wish to participate?
Yes, I do.
How do you vote, ma'am?
I vote yes.
Okay. With that, that is 4 votes concurring, granting Ms. Robbins the variance. Mr. Ransom?
Weak.
Your vote will be marked as absent. Okay. So if you, Ms. Robbins, if you're here for case 48.
Member Johnson, you are appreciated for avoiding another one of those.
Your case has been granted. You're free to go. Any issues that the Codes Department has currently cited you for any violations, we'll dismiss those with our costs. So, all right, Ms. Day. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Now we'll get into the regular agenda. The first case to be heard will be case 2025-47. Mr. Frank Hodges, the appellant. Gulch Development Corporation is the owner of the subject property, not Mr. Hodges' property. The subject property is located at 1201 Harding Place or 4601 General Lowry Drive. I'm going to pull up the PowerPoint for that. I'll go through just first, Mr. Hodges and Ms. Hodges' counsel, not to cover, kind of recap board members. Members, you adopted a new rules of procedure. We have changed how we do item A appeals. Previously, I would go first and state my case, and then let the appellant go after me, and then anybody else that wants to speak would get a chance. But it wasn't set up like our other cases where I should get the rebuttal, but that doesn't make sense. So we swapped it in our rules that the applicants, the person appealing the zoning administrator, would go first, would also get a rebuttal of both my testimony, which will come second, and then any other parties. In this instance would be the builder's representative, but if there were other parties who'd also want to speak. So each of those categories get 10 minutes to present their case. You get the option of rebuttal of all of us. I can't rebut any testimony. Ms. Lamb can't rebut testimony, but you can. And of your 10 minutes on the clock, you'll want to save some of that for rebuttal. Yes.
I thought the rules were, we got 10 minutes including rebuttal, you got 5, and anyone supporting.
Oh, you know, I gotta double check that. You've probably read them since I have. I will double check.
So Joe, it's 9J in the rules.
Okay,
So the appellant presents first, along with any parties in support of the appellant's appeal, and they have up to 10 minutes, and they can reserve time for rebuttal.
right.
But if there are no parties present to speak sort of on the side of the zoning administrator, you speak for 5 minutes.
Okay. that'll be
And
10
then
here.
the zoning administrator speaks for 5 minutes, and then if there are any parties essentially on the side of the supporting the zoning administrator, they speak for up to 5 minutes total.
That was my understanding.
Yeah,
Yeah, so 10, 5, and 5.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's basically 10 minutes per
10, 5,
side,
and 5.
essentially.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay.
So everyone, there should be equal time for each side.
That is a change from our last one. All right, I still had the other one stuck in my Mark 1 brain. Okay, first I'll speak. I won't talk to my argument in this case, but I just want to point out what the appeal's about. So, okay. This application comes to you appealing my determination of the orientation of the front facade of this structure. What is not at issue to you is allowing the orientation to be facing General Lowry. That is not on the table. I never made that decision. I stand firm in that Harding is the way this house must face. So I noticed both parties, I think, had referenced that in their summations. That was never my determination. My determination was just that, hey, I think what's facing Harding is a front facade. I didn't give the option of turning it to face General Lowry. So I do want to take that off because I think it may skew discussion that really is not what's in front of the board. What's in front of the board is that the front facade that I've determined facing Harding, the Hodges disagree with. Is that a fair summation? Okay. And the builders council argued that I did a great job of determining the front face, but that's essentially it. This is the subject lot. It's addressed at both 1501 Harding and 4601 General Lowry. And this is the definition of front facade. I will leave this on the screen if you'd like me to for the board members. And I can pull up your PDF that you submitted if you'd like for me to. They've received the paper copy that you gave me.
Are we speaking, if you could pull us on 8?
8, okay, we'll do. And, okay. So that is, I'll save my part. Let me pull up slide 8 for you guys.
The front and the right elevation. This is like-
Okay. Yes, and I will note for the record that Ms. Johnson is recusing herself from this case and will not be participating, so we have 4 members present. Okay, that is the introductory part. I will turn it over to you guys. I'm pulling up your PDF now. Let's see. Oops. So that is not it. I apologize, our SharePoint is running a little slow at the moment. Okay, finally. All right. I'm really sorry it took so long.
It flashed up a few seconds
there it
ago.
is.
Oh,
There we go. Page 8. Okay. Is that the right one? Okay. All right. Guys, I'll turn it over to you. If you would please identify yourselves and make your presentation to the board. Just checking time. I know any other parties besides Builders Council and myself who wish to participate. Okay.
we do have neighbors who.
Okay. All right. I'll turn it over to you guys.
Good afternoon. My name is Frank Hodges. I, along with my wife, Michelle, own and live in the house located at 4605 General Lowry Drive. I'm here representing a collective of neighbors and community members supporting this appeal, some of whom are attending today. I would like to recognize, please stand or wave as I call your name. Scott and Angela Thompson, 4604 General Lowry. Alex and Yesnia Sevilla, 4608 General Lowry. Matt and Molly Marr, 4609 General Lowry. Lynn Bennett, friend and neighbor across Harding Place. Ann Roberts, community advocate and former executive director of the Metro Historical Commission. And Charlotte Cooper, president of the Green Hills Neighborhood Association. 4605 General Lowry is adjacent to the subject property on the southwestern property line. The subject property is located at 1501 Harding Place. The subject property emergency address is listed as 4601 General Lowry Drive. The subject property is a corner lot at the intersection of Harding Place and General Lowry Drive. According to the Metro Property Assessor's website, the subject property has a lot line length of 190 feet on Harding Place and a lot line length of 218 feet on General Lowry Drive. Metro Code of Laws, Section 17.12.030.c.6 states, the front facade of a principal structure on a corner lot that has lot lines of unequal length abutting the street shall be oriented to the shorter lot line. The zoning administrator's office incorrectly granted a building permit on March 11th, 2025, based on architectural drawings that do not comply to the applicable Metro Code of Laws relevant to a corner lot. The drawings, as submitted, show the front elevation is oriented to General Lowry Drive, the long lot line. The building permit approval was granted on the second submission without any material change to the front facade orientation. The original submission was appropriately rejected in December 2024, citing, and I quote, "Front facade still faces General Lowry, but must face Harding, 17.12.030 C6 JKH 12/18/24. I'm assuming JKH is Mr. Hargis. The first submission was correctly rejected for noncompliance. The second submission was granted without warrant. I previously submitted to the board a presentation that outlines the applicable Metro Code, images of the property map which shows the property line measurements, the site plan which shows the orientation of the front facade to General Lowry, the corresponding house layout that shows the front of the proposed house facing General Lowry, the site plan showing the minimum front and side setbacks, and an overview of the adjoining properties and their orientation to Harding Place for your reference. I respectfully and humbly request that you affirm my appeal and revoke the permit issued in error. I would like to reserve the balance of my time for rebuttal. Thank you.
I had a question. I guess what is the issue at hand? What do you find problematic about how the house is sited?
May I answer that?
Yes, and say your name.
I'm Michelle Hodges, 4605 General Lowry.
Okay.
So number one, the house does not comply with Metro codes for a corner lot. Corner lots are supposed to face the shorter lot line per code. The front of this house faces the longer lot line, which is General Lowry. So it's not complying with the codes for a corner lot. In essence, what is being attempted is to use the side setback for the front facade of the house. General Lowry lot lines average, I believe, like 82.3 feet. The front of this house is going to have a 40-foot setback because they're using the side setback. So the house is not oriented properly, and if it were allowed to be oriented improperly, they're using the wrong setback.
So the house might be closer to the street than all the other homes along Lowry? Is that right?
Half as close.
Okay, understood.
But is it the side of the house that's half as close, or is it the front of the house that's half as close?
So that's where up on the screen, the front elevation is what is oriented to General Lowry right now. The right elevation is oriented to Harding. Harding is the shorter lot line, which is where the front facade is supposed to face.
So you're saying the front elevation should be on Harding and it's not?
Correct. And if allowed to stand as it is, the front facade's on General Lowry, but it's using a side setback. It's not using a front setback.
Yeah,
Any further questions?
I guess my question is, the front elevation I'm looking at, I don't see a front door.
That's in the center. There's, in the packet,
Yeah,
I can direct you to
It's like a
which.
shield door structure right there.
okay.
It's a double door. If you look at slide 10, I think you should have a packet in front of you as well.
Thanks. Yep. Thank you for this, by the way. Not everybody does these. It's very helpful.
You can see that it's to that front orientation, that front elevation shows an entry porch, a foyer. Then on the side with the garages, which is listed as the right elevation, you can see there's a friend entry and you can see where the garages are located. I would also point out that on this front elevation on the site plan, which is indicated on slide 7, there's a sidewalk leading up to the front doors.
Which way, where's the driveway? Is there a driveway on here yet?
The proposed driveway runs between the house and Harding, so along the side with the garages.
Okay, but it goes to the driveway
The
comes out
driveway
on Harding.
entrance is on General Lowry, right up at the corner next to Harding, and cuts between the house and Harding.
Okay.
I think that one of our overhead photos, if you, on slide 13, to the far right, you can see the previous home that was oriented towards Harding. That's the way the driveway comes in. That will remain the same cut through.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
And to be clear, they are using the 85-foot setback from Harding, which is the front setback. Our argument is it's the right elevation that is facing Harding, not the front elevation facing Harding.
So essentially, your position is if they just turn the house 90 degrees, then
That would resolve the issue. I think then their issue would be the house won't fit on the lot. If they turn it, it would then come onto our property.
okay.
They can't turn that floor plan. They could even keep that footprint, but put the front of the house on the Harding side.
I'm still trying to figure it out. So the setback off of Lowry is
For contextual.
supposed to be, no, it's okay.
I have that on slide 16,
Okay,
and I think the calculation, the very first house that you see up at the top, the 4605, that's our house. We put an addition on after the survey was done. So we're not 110 feet back anymore. So the average now is like 80, like I said, 82 or 83 feet.
okay, so the average, 82 to 83. And if the side is considered to be off of Lowry, the setback
Is
is
40 feet for the side.
So it's, okay.
But it's on a corner lot, isn't it a contextual setback going down? I mean, it always varied, I know that's changed, but no matter what the orientation in here is, it has two front setbacks,
Is
right?
that a question for me, sir?
Sorry, excuse me. Yes, Joey, that is a question for you. It has two front setbacks on a corner lot, so.
Not necessarily. Zones, duplexes on lots R20 and up have double setbacks, if you will, double context. So this, like I talked about initially in the thing, if you deem that the Hodges are correct and the front door is facing Lowry, we're gonna have to look at the permit and go, okay, show us compliance with the setbacks that, yeah, maybe another argument of whether the house could even face Lowry. But that's not in front of you. I made the determination
I know, because
that the front door faced Harding and I used Harding setbacks. So 40 is the Lowry setback under the code. Now, if you feel that, oh, they're right, front door is facing Lowry, then we're gonna look at the permit application anew.
So your determination is the front, just a minute.
Not to prejudice my determination, I still agree that the front must be Harding. Because the predominant pattern of development is Harding, not Lowry. That's not in front of you today. They are kind of related in the sense of if you agree that the front door, with them, that the front door faces Lowry, then we've got to look at the permit differently, apply setbacks differently. That's not for y'all to determine.
I think the determination was made that right elevation, I think Mr. Hargis determined that was the front of the house. We dispute that on slide 8.
Why is that?
I'll cover that in my time.
Thank you.
Could you put back slide 8, please?
And this new proposed house, whether the right elevation still meets the contextual setback, whether we determine that right elevation to be front or side, meets the setback along that side, right?
It does.
It meets it as a side setback, not as a front setback.
Not to his question.
No, it's the same. It's, there's contextual setbacks on Harding. So if you pull up that other slide that showed all the houses, including the previous one. Yep. So previous structure faced Harding. I'm assuming the right elevation would overlay almost right there. So front or side, it cannot go beyond that. Correct,
Correct.
Joey? Correct, yeah. It's not like it,
Well,
yeah.
they are related to each other. I don't want to
know
intertwine
one's
them,
related to the other.
but I'm not making the determination that the house is allowed to face Lowry. Because if the house is allowed to face Lowry, its setbacks on Harding become 40 feet.
Exactly, then it goes even further,
Goes
closer to.
Closer to the north.
Closer to
It
Harding.
slides north. It can slide north. That's his minimum. He can set it anywhere. But he could slide it closer to Harding. I'm not making that determination, and I've told the builder.
Is there a design overlay for this area at all? So there's nothing that would dictate really what the front has to look like versus the side?
That's what this appeal's about.
But you're saying if the determination,
definition.
just for argument's sake, is we say the front should face General Lowry, that gives the,
Let me sum it up this way. If you determine that they're correct, then we're gonna look at the whole project again. Right. We're looking at it based on, they're gonna have to, make a front facade that faces Harding. I'm gonna make a determination of the street setback on Harding, likely to be the same, and their setback on Lowry is 40.
If we determine.
This
the
appeal is
opposite
not,
way-
they get to face the house toward Lowry. I just wanna make sure.
Just to clarify where we are in the hearing, Joey, are you presenting?
No, I was
Okay.
answering a question.
Answering, I guess, we can go ahead.
I'll be happy to duck from my time.
Maybe if we want to go ahead
I
and,
think maybe, so you're done, right? Absent the rebuttal time
You've-
you
you've got-
reserved, is that correct?
We were just answering questions.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
so are you done with your questions? Just to clarify where we
I
are in
have-
the hearing process, are you done with questions for
This is-
them, and then we'll move on to Joey?
Thank you.
I understand all this. I guess this is just really, aside from it not meeting Metro's specification of what a side and front is in this particular instant, aside from that, what am I missing? Why does it particularly matter, aside from the fact that the front elevation is being deemed the wrong way? Is there something else that I'm missing? Is it?
Well, I think importantly, what we heard from two members earlier is about the community and the layout of the development. Every house on both adjoining lots of Harding, including corner lots, all face Harding. General Lowry is only 8 houses. There's only 4 of us on each side of the road. We all have the same setbacks. So to allow this build to not comply with the contextual setback and have the front of the house on General Lowry half as close to the road as everyone else is creating kind of discord in the development and how this community for 60, 70 years, how the properties, there's 3 huge homes that have been built on General Lowry. They've all met the contextual setback. They all face the proper way.
but those are houses that are oriented, that the frontage is on General Lowry, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, here,
So,
the side, I mean, if the house got changed or reoriented, the side could be 40 feet from General Lowry.
I absolutely understand that the footprint may not change. But when you look at driving down Harding and every single house faces Harding, no corner lots face the side street. They all face, this is going to be the one sore thumb that stands out. If the front, as it's laid out on the lot right now, faces General Lowry, when you come on General Lowry, it's going to be a sore thumb that sticks out because it's a front that is twice as close to the road as every other house.
So I guess and I understand all that. I guess as Mr. Bradford says, if the front faces Harding, the side setback will be potentially way in front of the front setbacks of all the other houses on General Lowry.
But it will be a side setback and not it'll be the side of the house.
Right,
not
but
the
you
front
just
house.
stated the problem is it's too far forward. Now, if the front is on General Lowry, then it would have to meet front contextual setbacks, which means it would be pushed back. And I just asked I guess maybe we're talking past each other, but when you answered my question is the problem is it would sit so far forward. So actually making the front face Harding would not fix your issue that you presented.
I guess I can answer that as an attorney. I think laws are meant to be followed, and I think you have rules and codes for a reason.
I understand that, and my question was outside of that. What other particular things am I missing? And it sounds like.
Well, like I said, I think it changes the character of our street by having the front of the home sit that much farther forward. I understand the side could sit just as far forward, but you've now put a front facade along with all the other front facades that sit back twice as far.
Okay.
Other than it being labeled this way on the plan, in terms of front versus side, what determines what's the front and what's the side?
I think,
If we were to either assume that there was a typo on the plan, or if we were to assume that somebody was changing how they were orienting the plan, what makes something a front versus not a front?
I have a couple of answers for you. Number one, I think common sense. I think looking at a house that's approximately 10,000 square feet that's going to sell for millions of dollars, I don't know many people who would look at the front and say, there's a door, a side door, and 3 garage doors. But on the other side of the house, you have a grand entry with 2 large doors and a sidewalk leading to it. I think common sense tells you what's the front and what's the side. The way they've labeled it tells you what's the front and what's the side. But if you also look at Metro codes, 1704-050 rules for construction of language, letter F, non-technical and technical words. Words and phrases shall be construed according to the common and approved usage of the language. The definition under 1704-60B, general terms. Front facade means the front vertical face of a building that is substantially in one plane, has associated with it a primary entrance, and is composed of the following architectural components: exterior walls, columns, or other vertical structural elements, windows, doors, roof edges, permanently roofed recesses and arcades, balconies, or porches with permanent roofs supported by vertical structural supports. I think there's 3 key things in that. The front facade means the front vertical face, a primary entrance, which is not defined in the codes, and then what those structural elements are, and none of those say a garage door. As to the primary entrance, again, that's not defined in the code. Honestly, the only definition I could find on the internet was from Law Insider Dictionary, that a primary entrance means, in the case of a single-family residential structure, the front door. So if we're using the common and approved usage of language, the front door designates the front. A foyer designates the front. A friend's entrance in a mudroom are a side door. Regardless of how often you use that door, I think lots of people use their side doors. That's your everyday usage. But you don't consider that your front door. You know what your front door is.
Joey, in your most simple words, your ultimate determination was the front should face Harding.
Okay,
Yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
time to
Yeah,
wait
sorry.
for the
Sorry.
judge's presentation.
Okay, any further questions?
And y'all have over almost 6 minutes still, because our questions don't count against your time. So you've got plenty of rebuttal time.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll take, we're taking the opposition, oh no, Joey next. Okay.
Yay, I thought I broke, okay.
So Joey has 5 minutes, and then the other party speaking in support have up to 5 minutes.
So a couple of things, let me get out of the way. Mr. Hodges' statement. He made a statement I'll disagree with, that there was absolutely no reason, there wasn't any material change to the plans, and that's just not true. Let me show you the difference in the 2 sets of plans at the time. Again, to clarify, we're only arguing is which is the front facade. That's it. Which way is the front facade? If you determine that the front facade, and you agree with the Hodges that the front facade is General Lowry, great. Don't worry about the setbacks. We got to look at the whole drawing again because it does not comply with General Lowry. That's not an issue in front of you. It's not whether the setbacks are in front. I agree with the Hodges. It violates the setbacks if Lowry is the front. So let's take that off the table. What we're talking about is which is the front of this house. That's it. That's all that's in front of you. So the difference in the original set of drawings which they submitted to you, I believe they submitted an exhibit, but I'll share with you, this is the original set. I'm gonna pull straight from the permit. The original drawing submitted in March of 24. Oop, not that one, sorry. March of 24. This was the original submittal by the applicant, which I rejected. And I'll agree, what I told Mr. Hodges and put on there is correct. The front door of this house did not face Harding. All through this, the front has to face Harding. It just does. The code, as Ms. Hodges discussed, the code does not define things, so we do have to use common sense and logic. I looked at the original set of drawings. This is what faced Lowry. This is what faced Harding, I rejected it outright on this one. This is the original submittal. The change that they made, they brought in, was what you see here. This is what they changed. They added elements to it that in the list of elements discussed in there, and I will say that garages are not in that list, but they added, they checked the boxes for front facade. In my mind, and that's why I agreed to and signed off on the permit. The code does say primary entrance, but I'll submit to you at my own house, my primary entrance is the back door. You pull behind my house, everyone uses the back, but I will agree, I know what my front door is. My front door is the other door that faces the public road. But the primary entrance in my own personal house is the door that everyone uses. So based upon the submittal that came in secondly, I determined that the changes between this drawing and that were enough to consider that to be front facade. Again, I can be wrong. You may likely find that I am wrong in this case. And in which case, if we're wrong, what we're going to do is they'll have to take the plan that they've submitted, show me a front facade that you deem front, and it has to face Harding. The setback off General Lowry will be 40 feet. Setback off Harding, I believe, is 81 based on the surveyed setback average. So I just want to make sure for the board members, this house will not be allowed to face General Lowry from a setback standard. It will not be sitting out in front. If you determine that the elevation submitted that Lowry is indeed the front, then they're going to have to give me a different plan. So
Joey, I just want to, Mr. Hargis, I just want to make sure I understand this in my own mind. So, do you agree that like the Harding Place lot line is 190 and then the General Lowry lot line is 218? So the way that they present
Yes.
that's correct?
yes,
And so the reason why you ultimately issued the permit is because they made these changes to that right facade. Is that correct? And so that's why you're like, oh.
correct. That's what I'm saying. The changes made from the first one to the second one, to me, were sufficient enough to be a front facade.
Okay.
There's nothing in the code that prohibits multiple facades that look like front. I could make all four sides. I don't want to go into that, but there's nothing in the code that talks about that. I do agree with the applicants. We should use common sense. You know, hindsight being 2020, may have had a different thing in looking at the two, but at the time I made this determination in December, I felt there were enough changes to warrant issue.
No, that makes sense. And I just, for the good of the record, I'm still listening and I'm still thinking about this. I understand, I don't think the decision you made was arbitrary. I think with this additional information, I do think if the front door is the facade that they presented it, I am inclined to agree with them, but I do understand the decision you make because it does look completely different, and they did make changes to make that right elevation look more front door-y. I know that's not a word, but I'm just gonna throw it at you. But just because you make it look like it, their argument doesn't mean that it's your front door. So
Right. I'll even, I mean, this is on the record. I'll admit the floor plans don't benefit that determination that I made. When you look at the floor plans, the overall floor plan has not changed from the original time in March.
okay.
The floor plans are still identical. I rejected it outright on the first end because it was clearly no doubt. To the second one, again, that's why Mr. Hodges is here. He disagrees with me. Perfectly right to do so. I felt there was enough there, and that's why obviously there's counsel for the builder who's going to kind of argue
Okay.
for my position.
That
But
was it.
I can certainly be wrong. You know,
No,
I'll leave it to you guys.
Thank you.
But the outcome of today is determinative of the future of this permit.
Okay.
If you agree with me that, oh, there's enough here that the front looks like, you know, you agree with the zoning administrator, obviously they've got a right to appeal. But that permit stands as it's issued. If you disagree with me, I'm revoking the permit. They're going to show me a different plan, and we're going to look at the setback calculations.
So really,
Can I ask you a question that you may have? I'm so sorry, Mr. Bradford. No.
I was going to say, really what we're determining today is looking at the plan, what is the front of this house? Not, everybody's in agreement, the front of this house is facing Harding. That's like, it sounds like, that's what, the front of this house is supposed to face Harding.
There you go.
And that sounds like that's what the applicant says, that's what you say. So we're not talking about this house, the front. When I say front, I mean
All three of us
legally the
agree,
front.
all three parties of
Yeah,
this
okay.
appeal agree that the front has to
And
face.
so then the question is, do the plans as submitted and approved comport with the front facing Harding or not?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe that's a proper statement. And again, if you agree with the Hodges, great. If you agree with me, okay. But either way, that starts a determination of, okay, going forward, how do we handle this particular permit, depending on how it comes out.
And so we are looking at both the floor plans and the elevations?
I think you can look to anything that you believe helps you make a determination in this case.
And the elements, again, that's, define something as a front.
Oh, wait, this is what the zoning code defines front facade
Okay.
as. And C6, I added C6 in there just to kind of talk about which way it's facing. We're in agreement, it has to face Harding, there's no question. But I just put it on there. There are some scenarios in which we can allow it to face a different road if it makes more sense. I didn't list those below because it's not germane today. But I think Mr. Bradford's question is, the crux of this is which is the front?
It's interesting because most of these elements can be on a side or.
Yeah, I have both of these on both the side and the front of my house.
Yeah.
I mean, as a builder, I'm an odd builder because I like corner lots because that gives me two front elevations. It gives me two facades to be able to do something with, make it interesting. A lot of builders still just do the front and the side elevation as plain as possible. But I do agree there has to be a predominant front elevation, so.
But maybe that's.
There's more
Yeah.
presentations to come.
Yeah, maybe we have to, were you done, Mr. Hargis? Okay, so, if we can let the opposition come up.
And I apologize for the record, I didn't run the clock on myself. I should have, but I'm pretty sure we can all agree I was nowhere near 5 minutes. But I am going to make sure Mrs. Lamb's got the clock set. Sorry, Ms.
Good afternoon. Thank y'all for hearing this. Emily Lamb here on behalf of the builder. I'm with Winstead Law Firm, 1221 Broadway. Couldn't remember our address. Again, we all agree the front facade has to face Harding. So the question here is, does the site plan, what is the front, what Mr. Hargis determined, what faces Harding, does that meet the legal definition of a front facade? The code does not regulate design. There's not a design overlay here. So if it meets the legal definition, and Mr. Hargis, if you would please go to my Exhibit A, if you can get there, I'll keep talking, but I labeled, and y'all have it in front of you, but it's a little hard to read when it's printed small. We very clearly meet the elements of a front facade as defined by the zoning code. The foyer that's on the site plan, that's interior. Facade is by definition exterior. So you don't look at the site plan, you look at the outside of the structure. There are many, many homes with front-facing garages. So the definition doesn't say, it says what you have to have. It doesn't say what you can't have. So we look at what you have to be considered a front facade. We meet all of those elements. There's nothing to say that you can't also have a garage. Again, there would be thousands and thousands of homes in Nashville that would not meet the front, that would be in violation if you can't have a garage on the front. So I don't think that's a valid argument. The facade here has the appropriate architectural elements to meet the code's definition. It's also important to note that the definition doesn't say the primary entrance, but a primary entrance. And the code talks about using the common usage of words. Merriam-Webster defines primary as of first rank, importance, or value. This is the front, the door here is what he is going to be using primarily, what his friends are primarily going to be using. As Mr. Hargis said, the front door of his house is not the same thing as the primary entrance that he primarily uses. Same thing here. Let's see if there's any, I know I'm running out of time. I'm not used to having only 5 minutes on opposition. Again, the nothing in the metro, as I said, the code does not regulate design. If we meet the definition outside of a design overlay, which we do not have here, nothing in the metro code eliminates the applicant's ability to select which facade can face what. If they both meet the definition of a front facade, there's nothing to say that the applicant can't decide which one faces which frontage. And again, as evidenced before you on the screen in the definition, we meet all of the definitions of front facade. The plans have been approved and unapproved and then reapproved. There's been a lot of confusion over this. But that is in part because we have resubmitted plans because it was originally disapproved. The elevation that's labeled front elevation, that is a typo. That is a mislabel. Again, it's the side facing General Lowry, but the other one that is mislabeled side elevation, that meets all the definition, all the criteria in the definition for front facade. Courts have repeatedly held that the government should resolve ambiguities in a zoning code in favor of the property owner's unrestricted use of his or her property. I think given the confusion here between the zoning administrator, the various possible interpretations or determinations of which is the front, is this the front? I think that as applied to this property, there is some ambiguity here, and that should be applied. That should be construed in favor of the property owner. Regarding the address, I think that's irrelevant. The address was changed for emergency purposes, which they mentioned, but that was not us trying to get one over on anybody. That was Sarah Kane from Public Works said, oh, for emergency purposes, this needs to be addressed to General Lowry because the driveway entrance is on General Lowry, and we want our emergency services vehicles to be able to find the ingress quickly in an emergency. So again, I think that at the end of the day, people might not like the way this looks, but that's not this board's job to determine. That's not Mr. Hargis's job to determine. That's not my job to determine. Our job is to look at what the law says, what the criteria is. I think we have clearly demonstrated that we meet all of the criteria for front facade. And respectfully, I don't think that there's any basis to overturn his decision based on what the black letter law says. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Can we go to the other elevation? The one that faces Lowry. So this one faces Harding. And this one is the one that faces Lowry. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then in the middle, it does look like windows, but I think on the plans it's doors?
I believe so, yes. Those are doors.
Yeah. Okay.
But again, as I was saying, both of these facades meet the definition of front facade. So there's nothing to say that the builder or the applicant developer can't choose which one faces which frontage. As long as the front facade is required to face the shorter lot line, the facade that we have submitted meets the definition of front facade.
So your argument is the other side has the primary entrance. This side does not have the primary entrance.
This side,
Or a primary entrance.
it has a primary entrance. Again, the definition doesn't say the, it says a. And if you look at the common usage of primary, it's the main one, the one of first importance. And again, this is the one that he is going to use. This is the one that his friends will use or his guests will use. So I think that, again, I think there is a primary entrance.
Any additional questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Ransom, were you about to ask something?
No.
Thank you.
You always have a thing to ask, which is good.
No, yeah.
No, that's good.
Questions
That's good.
here?
Are you ready? Okay. I would like to address specifically some things that Ms. Lamb just said. The property owner is a developer. So I don't know if he intends to live in this home or not, but I know the other two properties he's built, he's sold. So he doesn't know who's going to use what door and for what purposes. Second, as Member Ransom said, There are some overlays that allow on a corner lot, and you have to use both setbacks if you want two front facades. If that's the approach that they want to take here and call both of those front facades, then it needs to comply with the general Lowry setback. But per the actual definition of front facade, and I think as Member Bradford said, there are multiple sides of his house that could apply to that. So basically, if every single side of the house could be the front facade, what's the purpose of having a definition of front facade and determining what is the front? I also did not hear any reference to something in the code stating that you can't look at the interior of the house to determine what is considered the front. I think that the floor plan absolutely designates what is considered to be the front. I think the drawings that were submitted with the application determine what is the front and what is the right and left elevation. While what has been submitted today says left elevation, that's for purposes of today. The actual plans that were submitted with the permit that are on the site right now designate that as the front elevation. It's been designated as the front elevation for quite a while and has not been corrected. And the right elevation, which faces Harding. So I don't think there's any ambiguity. I think their plans delineated what's the front, what is the front. I think looking at the layout within the house tells you what the front is. What this is doing, if the board agrees with the opposing argument, is you're setting a precedent where someone can say, I'll make whatever side of my house be the front and just say I use that door all the time. Because these elements, it's a roof, it's a door, it's windows. You're going to find those on just about all four sides of a house. So I think the danger here is a manipulation of the code, both by today's argument and in the future by developers, to get around front setbacks and side setbacks by just calling whatever side they want the front because there's a door there. Did you have something else to add?
Yes. I want to address what Mr. Hargis said. And first, let me say, I stand by my statement that there's been no material change. The first set of drawings that were appropriately rejected clearly had a drawing that said front elevation. That elevation faced General Lowry. Those set of drawings were rejected. The second submission also had a drawing labeled front elevation. That elevation faces General Lowry. That is my no material change between submissions. So I think the first submission, the front elevation faced General Lowry, and it also had a front door label on the doors. The second submission still labeled front elevation faced General Lowry, but the developer and the architect removed the label citing front door. But they did, if you look inside that, the foyer is still attached to the door on the front elevation. And so Joey should have, Mr. Hargis's office should have rejected these plans on the basis that that's the information they have in front of them, and that's the controlling document.
Mr. Hargis, could you please put back up our slide 8? So again, I think just looking at the images, again, a roughly 10,000 square foot house that's going to sell for several $1 million or be listed for several $1 million. Put yourself in the shoes of the buyer. They're not going to walk up and look at 3 garage doors and a door that leads into a mudroom and say, look at the beautiful front of this house I'm looking to buy. They're going to look at the sidewalk that goes from the road to 2 grand, it appears to be maybe metal and glass doors that open up into a foyer. I think it's common sense what the front is. And this appears to be an attempt to face the house on General Lowry and get away with a much more shallow setback than's required. Do we have any questions that we can answer?
Any
or-
questions? No? Okay, then we'll close the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, design professionals, what's the front?
It's without a question, the one that's in this one labeled the front elevation. I mean, the Builders Council, I appreciate her argument and, you know, the legal gymnastics that she was saying. I mean, you can have multiple front elevations I like to have, but there's always one that's subordinate to the main elevation. There's no question that what is labeled here is the front elevation. So I don't, for me, maybe there's some more legal nuance that I'm
Well,
So
perhaps missing.
I'm just going to become, Ms. Davis, we've received some feedback that your microphone is not working and cannot be heard on the streaming legal. Could you just shift over one seat? So we'll see if that microphone works. Thank you.
Thus, the reason we're at a different location next meeting, because they're going to replace all the stuff in here.
Yeah, I've had to switch between two microphones because they start doing a strobe light disco thing, and then I'll switch to this one and I'll start doing the same, so. But,
Oh, I was just gonna say, unless Mr. Bradford.
no. Just blabbering. It's strobe.
I don't think you were blabbering at all. I think the questions you asked earlier were really good. I smiled because I thought it was a good question. So I think we had excellent arguments on both sides. I really appreciate both arguments, and I understand both arguments. I think looking at it, I tend to agree that the front is the one with the fancy glass doors with the foyer. I just think that it's a kind of a common sense approach, and it seems like the purpose of, yes, anybody can use anything as their primary entrance, right? But like the front likely leads into the foyer, right? So I'm inclined to vote and say that Joey erred in issuing the permit.
Yeah, the only thing and I'll say this, I think the front is I think the way that the house is designed visually in all regards, the side-facing General Lowry is what I would call the front if I were a layman. But the question is, I think that Joey looked at the elements, and I think that the Builders Council pointed this out. You know, the elements of what constitutes a front facade. To me, it seems like maybe the issue is an argument with what in the code is determining a front facade. And the way it's written now, I don't know that the zoning administrator erred in his determination of what constitutes a front facade, because I think that we have a primary entrance. And again, this is not passing on whether the actual code is written in the right way. It very well might be that we need to revise it so that front facade is more clearly defined one way or the other. But I think my issue is if he had denied that this was the front facade, then the builder could be in a position to say, like, what was the basis for it? I met the factors that were in this section of the code, and yet it's being denied. So what's the ground for it? I think given his two options, I think his looking at the plain language of the code, and making his determination, I think there's a difference between would I have come to a different conclusion? Probably. Did he err in his conclusion? I don't think so. So that's kind of where I am on this.
I think what Mr. Bradford said is right. And like I said, I do understand why Joey made the decision that he did. And I think sometimes when laws are written, there's probably like an assumption of just like a common sense approach. So I agree with you. I think what you said is absolutely right. And I'm not necessarily comfortable saying Joey erred, but I think what I am comfortable saying is when I look at this and I just make a common sense approach, looking at the code, looking at the plans, this is the front facade. Technically, he erred. I don't think the permit should have been revoked based off the plans that are in front of me. So, but I do agree with you. I think you're technically right, Mr. Bradford. So,
It doesn't sound like this thing's gonna, that we're not gonna get an answer on this one today, so.
I mean, I'm willing to make a
Well,
motion.
I'll say this, here's the other consideration though. Do we have another meeting within 30 days? Okay.
Okay. We'll take, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, you know, I just don't like the, for lack of a better word, the gamification of what's determine a front facade. You can have multiple front facades, right? Because you can have multiple fronts, as this one does. It fronts one street and it fronts another,
Yeah.
right? But I think the reason there's been this is just complete guessing, but it's pretty common sense to figure out what the front of a house is versus the alternative, right? So, you know, for me, there's no question there. Like, if, so you know, from the, I guess, the opposition's standpoint, it might, you know, the mass of the structure will probably end up roughly in the same spot as it is, and they could end up with a fairly large, you know, driveway and garages facing Lowry Drive, or I believe. So you know, maybe that doesn't really matter, but to me that would probably be, if I lived on Lowry, maybe I wouldn't want to look at that. But anyway, I know that's not before us this moment. I just wanted to throw it out there. So maybe it's not going to be resolved today.
Okay, I was just gonna ask for that motion since you
Okay.
had it.
I make a motion that we find that the zoning administrator erred in issuing the permit because the front facade should be on Harding.
Okay, I'll second. There's a motion, a second, any discussion? Sorry, any discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye, raise your hand. So, all opposed? Okay, so 3-1.
Okay.
It was
so
3-1, it'll stay on the docket until the next meeting, which is sometime in later July.
Yeah, this case will stay on the agenda for 30 days. We only have one meeting in 30 days, that's July 17th. We'll be out at the Metro School Board on Bransford Avenue. Public hearing's closed, so these 4 votes stand. The 2 members, excuse me, because she recused, the 2 members who did not participate can watch today's proceedings and the record, become eligible to vote on July 17th. Our rules also allow board members who voted to change their vote should they wish to. But the record's closed for everybody. So we are tied on that, so it'll be marked as tied on votes. Do you need a recess, or do we need to proceed on?
I'm gonna actually have to, I don't know how many we have left, but.
2
we've got
left, sir.
2, okay. Well, we've got,
I think we still have a quorum.
we still have a quorum.
Right? No one needs to recuse any of the remaining cases, right?
Yeah, does anybody need to recuse for the remaining cases?
Nope, we'll have a quorum.
Not that I'm aware of.
With, you can hang if you want to. Oh, no, we were asking about any other, like we have 2 other cases on the docket.
May I ask a question?
After I announce the next case, I can. Ms. Hodges, could you hang around, please, too? I got a question for you. Let me announce the next case and get you guys. All right, we will. Well, we're still good. Can we
Hey,
recess
so
for 5 minutes,
there's
please?
only one case left. Well, it looks like there's only one person in the room.
I hope there's a second person here, but we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Let's take a brief recess if you don't
All right.
mind.
If it's just
We'll be right
one,
back.
I'll stick around.
We're back. The next and likely final case of today is Mr. Mark Sittig. Is that correct? Did I pronounce that good? All right. Is the appellant and the owner of the property at 4021 Colorado Avenue. Mr. Sittig is requesting variance from the rear setbacks in RS 7.5 to construct a new detached garage. There's no other parties present. The record will reflect that but us. So, sir, if you'd like to come forward, I'll go through the photographs and hopefully explain your case. And if I don't, you feel free to correct me when you come speak after me. But you'll get 5 minutes after I'm done. And we have 5 minutes present. Ms. Johnson is now back with us for the record. So, all right. Went right by your house. All right. Subject property is at 4021 Colorado Avenue. Currently on the lot is an existing detached garage located to the rear of the residence. It currently sits at the 10-foot mark. Mr. Sittig is wishing to demolish that structure and construct a new one. Why this is not an item D request is because the removal of this structure in its entirety makes this a variance. Had Mr. Sittig kept 50% of that structure and added on to it, it would be a different appeal before you. But so we have to treat it like a variance because it's a wipe and reconstruct. It is grandfathered, the existing building, but once the demolition occurs, there's no more protection for it under the code. So his request is take down the existing building that was there, reconstruct this one that you see. It is 1,050 square feet. Under the code requires a 20-foot setback anyway, based on that size. I didn't bring my reading glasses, so I had to zoom in there. This is the front of this gentleman's home on Colorado. Beautiful home, by the way. Looking at, and then this is a view at the back of the alley, and I'll pull up for you while he's introducing himself, the aerial photograph, so you can see what's there today.
This is the current structure, right?
This is the current structure
cool.
that.
I wanted to make sure we weren't dealing with an I'm sorry case. Cool.
No, as he submitted in his drawings, I think you have, his proposed structure is a 2-story building that would be relocated in the same footprint locationally as this, but under our code, because he's removing A, he has to meet 20, B, he has to meet 20 because it's over 700 square feet. And that's it, sir. I'll turn it over to you to present your case and your hardship on why it needs to be there and not 20 feet. And I'll pull up an aerial photograph too. So.
All right. Hello, good morning, or good afternoon. Sorry, it's the day. My name is Mark Sittig. My wife and I, Lale Barami, live at 4021 Colorado. We've been there since March 2020. We've really enjoyed the neighborhood. I appreciate the board's time, and I also just wanted to highlight that I appreciate some of the excellent staff that have helped me, Christy Patrick and Craig, I may mispronounce his last name, Flame. They've both been professional and reminders and check-ins and have been wonderful to work with. So the purpose of this project is we have 2 small kids. My wife and I are both physicians, and we occasionally work from home and do telehealth. And it's hard to do work with the kids in the house making noise. They're 7 months and 2 years. So the second story is kind of a workspace and kind of home gym. We specifically had in the drawings that I submitted, the elevations are such that we tried to make it kind of like a 1.5-story property with dormers so that it didn't kind of peer over into our neighbors' yards. Our hardship is for like loss of the enclosed backyard for our children. By moving the proposed structure at the 20-foot setback, it kind of be in the middle of our backyard. And there would also be, although it wouldn't meet the requirements for draining mitigation, there would also be a significant amount of additional impermeable ground space with a longer driveway. So those are our reasons. I personally went to all of our adjoining neighbors to inform them of our request in addition to the required mailings, and showed them the drawings and gave them a chance to ask questions and make sure we got neighbor feedback. You can see 2 houses to the right. There are these detached kind of 2-story structures that are slightly smaller in footprint, but taller in dimension. So my goal was to kind of maintain the neighborhood aesthetic of having the rear setback be kind of linear and maintain our backyard so that our children have somewhere to play outside. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah.
We're still looking at it.
What's the square footage of the structure as it exists?
It is 22 by 22, so it's 484 square feet.
Okay, and what are the dimensions going to be of the new one? I know it's 2-story, but what's the bottom floor?
The width, I believe, is 38, so it'll add 16 feet to the width, and I think it's 26 from rear alley forward, so it's, I mean, that's not totally, there's a little portion sticks out for a covered doorway.
Got it.
But, yep.
And this is a question for Joey, but not the applicant.
Yeah, what you got?
You know, in this district, you can do a 2-car garage with a room above. If the garage door faces the alley, it has to be 10 feet away. If the garage door faces the side, it has to be 3 feet away from the rear property line.
So long as the building's under 700 square feet.
Under 700, that's
Yes, sir.
that's the tick, that's right.
Yeah, the footprint of this structure is what's driving the 20-foot rear setback.
Right, so instead of 10, you're going 20 because of the footprint. And then the height,
Height is, we are located, double check. it.
UZO?
I believe we're in UZO here, let me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are. So he gets 16 feet on the vertical wall, and the pitch can't exceed the pitch of the home.
So basically, said another way, 16 feet to the cornice.
To the corners, yes.
Yeah,
I'm
so
gonna
you
start
have like
saying that. That
a
makes
knee
more
wall
sense.
upstairs, right? And what's the height?
The proposed height here,
I believe it's 22.
I believe it is 22 feet. Let me pull it
Is
down.
that 22 to the vertical wall or 22 to the peak?
Peak. I believe it's to the peak.
Yeah,
Double check.
I will pull that up for you. I didn't put it in the PowerPoint.
I see 20, 21, or depending on where you measure.
I didn't include it here because,
Yeah, there's a little bit of slope, natural slope to the property, so 21, and looks like 21 and 8 inches from
It's
the,
actually under, as the way I'm looking at it now, it meets or is under what's allowed from a height.
yes.
we very specifically, my wife and I specifically did not want a large towering structure, which is the unfortunate trend in the neighborhood. We wanted to be respectful of our neighbors and their backyard privacy.
There we go.
So I'm just trying to get the clarification of the only thing that you're asking is for a variance for
Location setback.
Setback.
Height's
That's
fine.
it.
Height is.
I'm just trying to figure out what else is out of whack.
Nope, just the
I
setback.
hope that's it.
Yeah.
But I'm here to listen if there's any feedback.
What's the, my question to you is, I understand to ask, what's the hardship?
So in the neighborhood with drainage, it'd be an issue with the additional, basically almost 180 square feet of additional concrete that would be poured for the driveway to extend from the alley to a building that's set back 20 feet. So it'd be the garage door is 2 feet wider than our current garage door. So if you look at the satellite view there, it'd be a slightly wider driveway that would be twice as long. That could create drainage issues. We have French drains currently on either side of the property. And I'd be worried about some drainage issues. And then the other hardship would be kind of loss of green space in our backyard, for enjoyment. We'd basically be trading green space for concrete, and we'd like to keep the green space.
I appreciate that and I understand that.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, what's the hardship you could by right do this with 700 square feet?
Yeah,
So what my question is, it's 8, what is it, the footprint? It was,
it'd basically be like a smaller garage without space for storage and a shop at the bottom, and a smaller upstairs space for the two proposed uses, which are a home office for telehealth and a gym. we'd basically lose the storage and the shop space. It's non-conditioned space on the bottom floor. So we're under the 700 square feet of conditioned space. We'd lose that, and in doing this project, that was one of our goals, is to have space to have a shop and storage along with our garage. And that's why we went about trying to build what we would like to have on the property, and, you know, with the assent of our neighbors.
Okay.
Can we go to the photographs? Yeah, that one right there. So I think I understand this can be built on this property by right if it was 10 feet more into your property. Okay. And so what I see there is a tree that I think might be impacted. I'm looking at the top left corner. If
Yep.
the structure was moved 20 or 10 more feet into the property, that tree might be affected.
That tree would either be relocated or replaced, and I've already got quotes for a replacement sweet gum tree from a local nursery with installation. If the board is interested in that, I have already obtained quotes for that. I wouldn't want to reduce the number of trees in the neighborhood.
Right, right. But if you could possibly keep the tree if it looks somewhat mature, if the garage, the new structure was kept in, is put in the location that you're proposing, you could keep that tree, correct?
It's about 6 feet off, so the tree could not be kept either way, unless we have, and the structure would basically have to be at most like, with the construction debris and everything else, it could be like 3 feet wider. So, and that wouldn't be worth the time to do that.
You did say though that there's green space between, there's basically green space that would be preserved on the property that if you built it by right 20 feet further back would become new impervious surface so that your driveway.
We're trading backyard space for driveway space in that.
And saving a tree, sounds like.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably nobody on the board.
We need to close the public hearing if we're gonna.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't have any more questions.
Is that was not a question?
Well, I guess I'll ask a few questions before we close it. You know, you've kind of got a multiple different entrances in what I would determine the rear. You know, you've got a rear entrance going up, a rear entrance going down, kind of like a vestibule to some degree. Can you walk me through the reasoning behind that kind of design?
Yeah, the door to the leftmost door would be looking from the rear elevation, would lead up an enclosed stairway to the enclosed conditioned space. And the door to the right would be the entrance to the storage / where the vehicles are parked. Okay. But we're open if that's of concern. We like the general layout of this, but not married to the door layout by any means, or the windows for that matter, just kind of the general internal layout. We can move doors as needed if that was important.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, then we'll close the public hearing. And any comments?
The only thing I was gonna say is that I like to try to be consistent, and I know a lot of times we get asked like this where someone wants more storage or they want something, but it's not necessarily within the code and they don't have like a clear variance. And so I think this is a really nice house, and I'm not like opposed to it. I understand the reasons why, but I am struggling to find a variance, but I am listening because you guys might have heard one. I want to put that out there because we hear these a lot and we get these a lot. And
Yeah,
we've moved people. I mean, we denied that man who had like that 10-car garage in Inglewood because it didn't meet. Because he just wanted it. He wanted it and he had a good reason, but it didn't fit. And so all I'm saying is like, I understand it. I think this is a very pretty house too. And I think you guys ask good questions, so there may be a variance. I just need somebody to tell me what it is. I might have missed it.
I'm strolling with you. I mean, there's probably no one on the board that wants dadoos, accessory structures, carriage houses, whatever you want to call it. I love, for the reasons he's talking about, you know, people, home office, people work from more and everything else. But there is this, unless something changes within the council and codes, there is this kind of consistency that we have. Because he can, by right, build this 20 feet back, or he can go to 10 feet and do 700 square feet. He has no opposition, but I'm struggling to,
Yeah,
and then, the cynical side of me is I see, multiple entrances, a closet, which happens to be the same size as a shower upstairs, and some other stuff. So I'm a little cynical on that side of what will happen to it beyond his ownership. Not saying that he necessarily has any kind of alternative
But
plans to it. But
that's not what we're here for.
I understand. I understand.
I appreciate the effort to not create more impervious surface and to create more paved space. I think that it's important to, that, by right, he could continue to pave that driveway another 10 feet and create more concrete. He can create more issues related to stormwater runoff. To me, that warrants this. I think the other reality is, he could pull the roof off of this and add on to the garage as it exists. And if he doesn't destroy the four walls, it would have been an item D, so it would have been a non-conforming. The variance would, I think there's a way to, there is a hardship here to me in terms of that building this, granting the variance would preclude elimination of impervious surface that could lead to stormwater issues on the site. I also think that a new structure could be more energy efficient, could be better insulated, could be better protected from noise against neighbors versus what would go on top of it. And I think that we've heard a statement that it's consistent with some of the other structures that have been built at a similar height, and that it's consistent with where the other garages are located within the context of this neighborhood. So I'll make a motion that we approve the variance as requested based upon a showing of hardship due to the existence of impervious, to prevent the creation of further impervious surface. I also think it's a very narrow lot.
I'll second that motion. So there's a motion, a second, any discussion? Looks like there might want to be.
Yeah, it's almost the same footprint as the house that we denied with the creek behind it. I'm just saying this is a large structure. Like from a footprint standpoint, I appreciate the applicants. I don't know. It's not like he's asking for 700, 800.
I thought this was a 1,000 square foot structure, and that was a 2,000 square foot structure on the house with the
First floor,
creek.
second floor.
Oh,
So footprint wise.
Right,
It's like roughly the same, roughly the same footprint. I just don't want the scale of this to be lost. This is 38 by 26 plus an extension. It's just,
I think that
I'm hung up. I really want to approve it, and I really want to but I'm hung up on the fact that we've held some people's feet to the fire that have built and asked for forgiveness and other types of things.
And we have held people's feet to the fire for the same reason, wanting storage, wanting home office space, and if it didn't meet the code for a garage. Like I said, I want to approve it too. I think the applicant is a really nice person, has a very nice house. I have a 10-month-old that is very loud, and I work from home, so I totally get it. I feel conflicted on all the other ones that I denied, where they had a good reason too, and we didn't do it because it didn't meet the code and we couldn't find the variance. But I think, Mr. Bradford made a very good motion and he articulated the variance, so I think you just gotta let the vote go where it goes on this one, so.
I'm going to ask one question and I'll let it go. Joey, is there anything coming down the pipeline regarding accessory structures or that you're?
Yes, I'm not privy to the full details of it, but the council is going to rework our accessory structure code.
So, but that may, who knows when.
Yeah, I guess the reality is, Mr. Ransom, what I'll say is he could tell us to pound sand and stick it right behind his house anyways, and there's not a thing we could do about it, so.
Because the current one is 10 feet?
Well, he could build it 10 more feet and just stick it right there in his backyard. So I guess the question is, not saying what he would do. Would you rather have it be here where it is, or would you rather have it 10 more feet inside?
I'd rather have it where he's proposing. I hear you.
And I'll say that, yes, I think we've had other cases like this, but every one of these stands on their own merits and stands on, the way that they are in terms of what the structure is, how it fits, and how it fits in the context of the particular lot.
Yeah, there are other garages that are 3 feet away. So,
Okay, so any further discussion? We had a motion and a second before we take a vote. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay, so, all in favor, say aye, raise your hand. Aye. All against? Okay, so that's 4-1. Congratulations.
you got me.
Okay, case is approved on a vote of 4-1. That will conclude today's hearing. Just a reminder for the 5 of y'all.
I know. I want it there.
Hey, just a reminder for
But
the 5 of
I
y'all.
want everybody to have it
We'll-
there.
We'll be at the school board, Bransford Avenue. Heck, if I Google it. I would say Google it. I don't know off the top of my head. We've been there before, so.
Where everybody wears a navy blazer and a tie like a middle school principal.
There. 1 o'clock. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.